Get ready, because today we're going to look at 3 mistakes that ruined the Joker sequel. By the way, my name is Brandon McNulty. I'm the author of Entry Wounds, and welcome to my writing channel. When it was announced that Joker 2 would be a musical, many people declared it dead on arrival. But me, no. The other night I went into the theater with an open mind, and, well, unfortunately, having an open mind didn't really help. This movie is a disaster, and not just because of the musical elements. That's why today I want to look at 3 writing-related problems that hurt this movie the most. Just so you're aware, I'll be discussing both Joker movies today, so consider this your spoiler warning. Now, for a quick recap, the 2019 Joker film gave us a gritty psychological thriller about a man named Arthur Fleck who descends into madness, becomes a murderer, and ultimately labels himself the Joker. The movie sports a gripping storyline loaded with mysteries, surprises, and high-impact moments, and a key reason for its success was how it made us sympathize with its main character. And that brings us to the first reason why the sequel sucked, because it failed to create sympathy for Arthur. Now, sympathy is a powerful storytelling tool. In the book Techniques of the Selling Writer, author Dwight Swain argues that there are 3 ways to help audiences engage with characters: through sympathy, empathy, and envy. Sympathy is arguably the strongest of the 3, and we see this at work in the first Joker movie. Right off the bat, we're given a reason to feel sorry for Arthur. We see him trying to make an honest living, then a bunch of scumbags steal his sign and beat him up. This is a great start, but the movie doesn't stop there. Throughout the story, it repeatedly creates sympathy and gives us reasons to care about Arthur, which is important because anytime a protagonist goes down a dark path toward villainhood, there's a risk of losing the audience. Now, unfortunately, the sequel doesn't do the legwork to make us care about Arthur. The movie opens with him at Arkham Asylum, and here people are relatively nice to him. Nobody terrorizes him like in the first movie, and this is a huge mistake from a writing standpoint. Even though he was already established in the previous movie, we still need an introduction that helps us emotionally connect with him, especially after all the murders he committed in the first movie. But we don't get that here. Instead, what we do get is a tame, uneventful intro sequence that feels like it goes on forever. While I was sitting there in the theater watching this part of the story, I kept asking myself, why should I care? And sadly, I never got an answer. Second thing that killed the sequel is a lack of meaningful stakes. Stakes are what's at risk. They're what a character has to gain and also what the character has to lose while pursuing their goal. Stakes are important because they create tension and they get us emotionally invested in a story. In Joker 2019, there are meaningful things at stake, whether it's Arthur's identity, his mental health, his physical safety, his emotional needs, his moral compass, and even going beyond Arthur, the safety of the supporting characters and society as a whole is at risk. These things keep the movie engaging by making us worry about what will become of the characters. Now, when crafting a sequel, typically we want to raise the stakes, make things even more desperate. But the Joker sequel fails to do this. Early on, they established that Arthur could receive the death penalty, but this hardly feels like a big deal, especially when the deadliest threat to Arthur has been Arthur himself. So then what the writers do in hopes of raising the stakes, they bring in Harley Gaga. During a music therapy session, Arthur meets her, then the 2 trade info dumps with each other, and then she tells him how impressed she was with his crimes. Next thing you know, he's head over heels for her, but there's a problem. Harley loves the Joker, but not Arthur. And later, when he's on trial, he has to decide whether to blame his Joker persona for his crimes or accept responsibility as Arthur. Essentially, what's at stake here is who he is. And that's exactly what was at stake in the first movie, but it was dramatized in a much more compelling and suspenseful way. So instead of raising the stakes, the sequel repeats the stakes and suffers from diminishing returns. Finally, the third thing that killed this movie is Arthur's lack of agency. When we talk about agency in storytelling, we're talking about the idea of characters making decisions that drive the plot forward. The most engaging characters tend to be the ones who come up with plans, take action, and react appropriately when things don't go their way. On the other hand, passive characters who wait around for things to happen are much less interesting. And unfortunately, that's what we have here in the Joker sequel. I already mentioned that the early Arkham Asylum parts fell flat, and a major reason for this is that Arthur isn't really doing much here. He doesn't take action or come up with any escape plans or anything. Even when the plot gets rolling, it's Harley who sets a fire in an effort to help him escape. Arthur's just along for the ride, and it's frustrating to see a character like him, who actively fought back against society's bullying in the first movie, it's frustrating to see him just floating around here in the sequel. To be fair, he does have some moments of agency, such as when he fires his lawyer in the middle of his trial, but most of the story's big actions are performed by other characters. Not only is this a huge letdown, but it makes the plot events feel random and unearned. The worst example of this comes toward the end when Arthur confesses to his crimes and is found guilty. Moments later, a bomb goes off and destroys the courtroom. This event is certainly a shocking one, but it's also disappointing because Arthur didn't have a hand in orchestrating it. There's no setup and payoff here, just a random surprise that gives the audience a temporary thrill. Now, compare this to the final act from the first movie. If you remember, there's a setup where Arthur plans to kill himself on national TV. Here he has agency, he makes a choice, and we have to wait for the payoff. In the meantime, while we're waiting, the suspense builds and builds, keeping us glued to the screen until he chooses to shoot Murray instead of himself. The sequel could have benefited from this type of suspense, but if we're being honest, even that wouldn't have been enough to rescue it. The story is full of issues, whether it's the failure to get us reinvested in the protagonist, or the lack of meaningful stakes, or Arthur's lack of agency. In the end, we're left with one of the worst sequels in recent memory, and if it's alright with you guys, I think we should just pretend this one never happened. So I hope this helps. Question of the day, what's the most disappointing sequel you've seen in recent years? Let us know in the comments section below. Thank you for watching. If you want to support the channel, please pick up a copy of any one of my books and be sure to leave reviews on Amazon. Entry Wounds is great if you like thrillers. It's about a guy who picks up a haunted gun and he can't put it down till he kills 6 people with it. Also be sure to like, share, and subscribe. Check out my other videos. Maybe hit that thanks button for me. And as always, remember to keep on writing.